So, speaking of student entrepreneurs, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Adrian Rosebrock. He has spoken for us in the past. He got 2 degrees from UMBC. He got a computer science degree at BS, and he also has PhD from us. And he's a serial entrepreneur. He's awesome. Every time I ask him to do something to support the university and students, he says yes. So once again, he said yes for us. So he's done several things. He will talk about that. He is currently the CEO and owner of PyImageSearch, and I think you're going to find his lessons learned very valuable. And it's all about execution. He's going to be talking about that. So with that, Adrian, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you again from the bottom of my heart for always saying yes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to pull up everything, make sure I
And
have.
students, if you have questions, use the chat feature. I'm going to ask you all to go on mute. I'll take your videos off so we have the best reception, but just chat away and Adrian will address your.
Can everyone see my screen? Is that good?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. So this talk is on relentless execution, my lessons learned, advice for bootstrapping your way to a successful business. Notice that I'm using the word bootstrapping here. I'm a big fan of bootstrapping versus raising venture capital funding. I've seen venture capital funding going wonderful, and I've also seen when things go horribly wrong. And because of that, I'm a big fan of bootstrapping. If you can provide your own financials or just work within friends and family to raise money for a business, it reduces the amount of stress in your life. But these same tactics, these same techniques can be applied if you're interested in the venture funding route as well. So a little bit about me. Husband, proud dog parent. We got Janie, our little fur baby up there. She's a 2-year-old beagle. And if you know anything about beagles, they are just crazy fun dogs, but also they will eat anything and everything. So we've had quite a few instances where I've woken up in the morning, come downstairs, and found her create a complete and total mess. And I tell you what, working with dog shit first thing in the morning without coffee, not fun at all. But one of the wonderful things about having a dog is the joy they bring to your lives. My family, we live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we love it up here, but of course the rest of the world is struggling with COVID, and it's hard living in a big city, but we're getting by the best we can. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's of science and a PhD in computer science, both of which are from UMBC. The focus in artificial intelligence, so computer vision, machine learning, deep learning. All that means is I write software that understands what's in an image. So face recognition is a great example. If you use Facebook in the past 5 years, they've had pretty good face recognition algorithms. They can not only detect the presence of your face in an image, but they can automatically tag you as well. And you've probably seen examples of that while using Facebook, while they're just automatically tag and recognize your face. Here's examples of face recognition. I have this example of, doing real-time object detection, so detecting myself, detecting the couch, detecting Janie the beagle on the couch, and license plate recognition. That's another great popular example of what computer vision is capable of. Funny story about license plate recognition. When I was finishing up grad school, and I think it was about a month before I was supposed to graduate, I was doing some consulting work for a company, and I was driving my car from Baltimore up to Connecticut. And as I was driving down the road, I was, speeding on 95. I drove past an intersection and I saw a flash out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh man, I know exactly what that was. That was a speeding camera that totally snapped my license plate. And it was so cynical and frustrating because I had written code that does that. And I'm like, I wonder if that system there is like running code, and I wonder if I just got caught using my own code. Funny things you think about working in computer vision and deep learning. But I've worked a lot in the entrepreneurial space ever since I was 17, 18 years old. When I was an undergrad, I worked for a website called RateMyTeachers.com. It's a teacher rating website. And I worked for that company for about 6 years. So I was doing full-time at Rate My Teachers, and I was full-time undergrad and grad school as well. So I was basically had 2 jobs. School is one job and work is another job. And the benefit of doing that is I learned, especially from a computer science perspective, if any student here in this meeting is a computer science major, I would encourage you to at least find some sort of job outside of the university. You're going to learn how to take what you learn inside the university and see the practical real world applications of what you're building. You'll learn how to take these algorithms you learn and actually use them in the real world. That is so, so important. And also, college courses aren't perfect. There's going to be things that they're going to teach you that you're never going to use in the real world. So by having another job outside of the university, you're going to learn and focus on the things that actually really truly matter. So just a little aside there. But when I was in school, when I was working on Rate My Teachers, I felt the entrepreneurial itch to kind of build my own projects. And two of them were Chic Engine and ID My Pill. They were iPhone applications centered around computer vision. So Chic Engine I describe as a fashion search engine. You could pull up this iPhone app, you could snap a photo of like your friend's dress that you really liked or that really sweet new pair of shoes, and then it would recognize the shoes and tell you where you could buy them online. It was basically it was an affiliate company, so we would get paid anytime someone purchased using affiliate link through Chic Engine. But we also had a component of premium listings because it was a search engine. It was like selling advertising space. The problem we encountered there was we were building a two-sided marketplace. We needed users of the app to be actively using it a lot, and then we needed companies who would be willing to spend money in order to have their products in a premium listing. Building a two-sided marketplace without venture funding is incredibly, incredibly challenging. So while Chic Engine made enough money for me to like pay my pay for some gas, like maybe a couple tanks a month, it really never made that much more money than that. So I took what I learned from Chic Engine and I went on to ID My Pill. And as the name suggests, it's prescription pill recognition. I mean, I say that, man, that sounds like a boring topic. Who the hell cares about prescription drug recognition? Well, it turns out that there's over 1 million injuries and deaths that happen every single year due to people taking the incorrect pill. So mistakes happen. Mistakes happen at the pharmacy level, at the hospital, and at the patient level. So let's say like I wanted to be nefarious and I walked into your house and took all of your prescription pills and just dumped them out on the floor. You may or may not be able to get them sorted back into the correct bottle. Or worse, what if I just put some pills in that complete mess on your floor that you had never seen before? Would you take them? Would you not? Would you confuse them with other medications? So in an effort to reduce the number of injuries and deaths that happen every year, I said, let's create an iPhone app that can recognize pills. You just snap a photo of the pill and it tells you what it is. That was a little bit more successful. We made enough money on a monthly basis to like pay rent, I guess. The biggest problem and our largest lesson learned there was if you want to go into the medical industry, you probably need funding, but more importantly, you need better connections. You need to have people at the pharmacist level, you need to have people at the drug company level, people you can partner with and give you the intros and the conversations you need. So we pivoted the app a little bit and we said, let's have the app just serve as a demo. And what we'll do instead is sell it as an API. So if someone wanted to develop a piece of software, they could use the ID My Pill API and integrate that into their own projects. That made us a little more money, but again, we just didn't have the proper connections to really double down on that. So with that in mind, and with this point, I'm midway through grad school, I started doing consulting work for the National Institutes of Health, and specifically with cancer research. So we developed computer vision and image processing methods that can automatically analyze breast histology images for cancer risk factors. Now, previously, this is a technique that took an actual person, actual pathologist, a trained pathologist. It could take them hours to go through and analyze these images for risk factors. Using the algorithms we developed, we could really do that in about 10 seconds per image. So that was really, really helpful to the community, and that software is still used at NIH today. So we get to the end of grad school, and I'm just a little frustrated because, man, like I developed Chic Engine, didn't really take off, developed ID My Pill, did a bit better, did some really cool work for NIH, but really haven't built something that I could live on. And I kind of traced back my steps and I realized the issue is that I was too focused on the software side of things, and I wasn't focused enough on the marketing side of things. That's a common symptom you'll see with technical founders. Technical founders like to write code. That's what we're good at. We enjoy coding. It's relaxing to us. It's where we're comfortable. The problem is that it's too easy to disappear into the basement and build something for 6 months and then come out later and realize that no one actually wants what you built. You created a solution in search of a problem. You want it to be the other way around. You want to find the problem first and then create the solution to it. So that's really one of the reasons why ID My Pill and Chic Engine failed, is because the marketing and the validation wasn't as tightly coupled. So final semester of grad school, we celebrate my teachers, gives me enough money to essentially not work my final semester of grad school, and I decided that I want to start an information product company called PyImageSearch. So I have this expertise in computer vision and machine learning, and I said, let's write books and courses that teach people what I do. So I started this company by myself, and it really took off. Again, I wanted to be something to improve my marketing skills, but it turned out to be much, much larger than that. Over the past 7 years, we've raised over $1 million across 4 crowdfunding campaigns. You can see some of the screenshots here from some of them. Over 20,000 customers across 50 countries. I've authored 5 books and courses and 400 plus articles. And basically, it's an information product website. You come to the website, we have free content on our blog. You can learn about it. You can enter in your email address to learn more. And then we have our premium paid content, which you can purchase. There's nothing inherently special about the PyImageSearch business model. And you see information products applied anywhere. They're especially popular in the fitness space. There's tons of fitness gurus who will tell you what workouts to do to get super ripped and in shape. There, you see a lot of it in the drug and pharmaceutical and supplement areas. There's tons of books and courses you could buy on what supplements are best for you. So information products by themselves are a pretty well studied area, but they're easy to enter, especially if you have any area of expertise. So I'm working on PyImageSearch. It starts to take off, and by approximately 8 months after I left grad school, I left the company that I was working with, and PyImageSearch became my full-time job. And that's when my back was against the wall, because I was making just enough, just barely enough to squeak by on my rent and on all my payments. That was especially stressful because I just moved in with my fiance or girlfriend at the time, who would later become my fiance and wife. And I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful. What if this business fails? I'm gonna be broke. What if she leaves me? This could really cause a massive, massive stress in my life. So I'm thinking in my head, how do I get through this? How do I make this super, super successful and optimize my life such that this business really takes off? And at the time, I was talking to Rob Walling. Some of you may know him. He's the host of the Startups for the Rest of Us podcast, and him and I talk a bit. He's probably the closest thing that I've had to a mentor in the startup space. And he defines relentless execution as the things that push your business forward. And you do it day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. It's picking out those tasks that really, truly matter and hitting them every single day relentlessly. So again, it hinges on what is most important to the business. That's not checking your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, your direct messages. It's not the entrepreneur of podcast or watching the social network for the 100th time. And no, it's not even going through your inbox. It's picking off those tasks that really, truly matter, right? Like writing that new sales page, writing that new sales campaign, implementing that new feature that'll convert on your SaaS app. Ryan Muncie, in his book, Fuck Your Feelings, says relentless execution is what's moving the chains. So it's a football analogy. You have 4 downs to get 10 yards, and that resets every 10 yards. It's the same concept here. If you want to call it relentless execution, if you want to call it moving the chains, doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's doing what moves the business every single day, no matter what. And my goal through all of this is to give you my tips, my techniques, and my tactics that you can use to relentlessly execute like a boss, build your business. And if you don't even apply these tactics to your business, you could apply them to your schoolwork. They will work just as well. The first real tip that I have is find your biological prime time. And this is a concept covered by Chris Bailey in his book, The Productivity Project. And the exercise here is to set a reminder on your phone to go off every hour. And on a scale of 0 to 10, you're going to mark what your current energy level is. And you're going to do that for however long you're awake in a given day. It could be 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, whatever, however long you're awake for. And you want to do this for probably about a week or two, and then average it together over an hourly basis. And it gives you a plot that kind of looks like what I have here. And it shows that for this particular person, they have the most energy, starting around like maybe 11 o'clock in the morning up to about 3 o'clock. And maybe they have a little bit of a boost towards 6 or 7 o'clock. And after that, they're just dead tired. They're exhausted. That means that to move the chains, to relentlessly execute, they need to plan the most valued tasks somewhere between 11 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they need to be aggressively defensive about that time. That means they don't accept meetings during that time. They're not getting on calls. They're not hanging out with their friends. They are in a room with headphones, with noise-canceling headphones on, the blinds drawn, just staring at their screen, getting the stuff done that moves the business forward. So for me, I'm an early morning person. I'm up by about 4:30 in the morning, and then I work to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I am the most productive between about 4:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm aggressively defensive about that time. I do not let anyone schedule a meeting with me during that time. That could be, and that's true even for people on my team. Even if it's a 911 emergency, I may tell them it can wait. Let the fire burn for 2 hours when I'm online, and then I'll help you. Use this tactic when you're studying. So if you know what your biological prime time is and you have this really important exam coming up, start studying during that time. If you're working on your business, that's when you want to be your most focused. That's when you want to be writing that sales copy that's really hard, or working on that tricky piece of code. So be super, super defensive about that time and be highly protective of it. Basically, your biological prime time is when you're the best, most productive version of yourself. Another technique that I like to do is live your life by 3 big things. This is a Trello board that I use every single day of my life. And what I'll do is, or as you can see, I have 4 columns here. My primary column, so this is my 3 big things, the things that hell or high water I will get done at all costs. Then I'll pick off 3 of those, and those will be the things I get done for the day. I have a secondary column. These are things that I really want to get to, but if I don't, it's not the end of the world. So throughout the day, I start with my primary column. I'll pick one of those off. I'll drag it over to the doing column, and then I will just focus on that task until it's done. And once it's done, I moved it to the done column. I'll repeat that for all 3 of my primary tasks, and then if there's time, I'll start tackling my secondary tasks. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out what work is enough. So for example, writing an entire sales page in a single setting might be too much for you. So you may say, for my primary task today, I'm going to write this section here, and then the second task is this section down here, and then your other task may be the final conclusion section at the bottom. So it takes a little bit of practice to figure out what reasonable chunks are, but if you do this for a week or two, 2 things are going to happen. The first one is your productivity is just going to go through the roof because you're going to be ultra focused on these tasks, and you're not going to be jumping around thinking, oh, should I be working on this task or this one? No, you already know what to do. And secondly, you're going to get much more efficient at understanding how much work you can do in a given time block. So practice doing this, and I recommend planning and creating your 3 big things and your secondary list before you go to bed the previous night. Load that up in whatever project tracking application. I like Trello. A simple to-do list or a piece of paper is equally useful. Put down that list before you go to bed. So when you wake up that next morning and you're ready to work, you're not spinning your wheels trying to figure out what the next thing is that you're supposed to do. You already know what it is. You just need to go in and attack it. So live your life by your 3 big things. It'll make you ultra productive, and you'll blow past your peers. This is the 3 big things is another example of moving the chains, right? You do this every single day. Those chains, by definition, move. I could talk for like days and days about flow states, and gamers, coders, and athletes are just intimately familiar with this concept of flow. as an athlete, you could be playing soccer or lacrosse, and that's when time just slows down and it's almost like you're picking up every single detail. Just time doesn't matter, the clock doesn't matter. You're able to perceive everything and it just feels flowy. Your teammates are working in unison. Gamers is the same thing. Like, how many times have you been like in your dorm playing Fortnite and all of a sudden someone else walks in and completely like distracts you, and then for the next 15 minutes you suck. Like, you just can't win at all. It's because prior you were so focused on the game. You're so focused, you were so good, and then you get that little disruption and it knocks you out of it. And for coders, this is extremely important, because coding is essentially a logic puzzle. You need to be deep into the details to understand what you're doing. So if you get a distraction, it knocks you out of flow. And there's research that states that it could take up to 15 to 20 minutes for a programmer to get back into flow, to get into that deep focused work, if they can get back into it at all. So the general goal here is you need to work smarter, not harder. And the way you do that is becoming more familiar with flow states and flow triggers. I like to work with noise canceling headphones on during my biological prime time. So I'll put on my noise canceling headphones. I put on some instrumental music because lyrics distract me. And then I just focus on that piece of work for my given time block. And typically what will happen is I can hit that flow state where the world just kind of dissolves around me. My ego disappears. It's just me focused on that singular task. Stephen Kotler talked about this in his book, The Rise of Superman. And basically, he focuses on flow states with extreme sports athletes, like your skateboarders, your snowboarders. And what he found is that with skateboarders and snowboarders and all those other extreme sports, those athletes are literally putting themselves in risk of death. And they have pushed their sports so much faster and so much harder than your traditional sports like basketball and football. Because, once every 10, 20 years, you may get someone like a Michael Jordan or LeBron James that will change a game in a meaningful way. But with extreme sports, it happens every single day. And these quote unquote like nobodies that you hear about, they're the ones pushing the sports even farther. And the reason they're able to do that is because during these life and death situations, your brain automatically kicks into these flow states. So there's entire bodies of research that discuss how flow states make you more productive. And there's all sorts of triggers you can use. And I could, again, talk about this for days, but if you're interested in like reaching true superhuman performance levels, read The Rise of Superman. It gives you a good overview of how flow is used. And then Stephen released a new book, The Art of Impossible, and it's just almost a playbook of how you can get flow into your life and make you more productive. And I'll also say, as students, you want to study while you're in a flow state because you're going to retain it so much better. Big one here is you got to get to the gym. It removes stress hormones from your body, builds grit and determination, teaches you that things are going to suck, but more importantly, that even if they suck, you can get through it. So find a physical activity you are passionate about and do it 3 to 4 times a week. And if you're crazy like me, start experimenting with yourself. In 2020, I averaged a little over 5 workouts per week. So far in 2021, I was like, man, let's like ramp this up to like an almost absurd level. I've been averaging 12 workouts per week since the beginning of 2021. And you might be thinking like, man, doesn't that tire you out? Aren't you spending more time recovering? Like, how can you focus? How can you still get work done and be productive if you're working out 12 times a week? This is actually a great example of how much more productive you can be when you shrink the amount of time that you have to work. If you have 12 hours to get a task done, you're more likely to procrastinate. You're going to maybe work on a little bit, and then when you get a little tired, you'll hop on Facebook or Twitter or Reddit, and you'll come back to it, and then your friend will come in and you'll interrupt you, and then you'll have a 20-minute conversation about the relationship problems and blah, 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 blah. The point is, if you gave yourself a goal and said, I only have 1 hour to complete this task, well, all of a sudden, you feel that stress, you feel that pressure, and then you focus on that one task, and you'll get that done so much quicker. And that's what happened with me when I started working out 12 times a week, is that, yeah, I have less time to work, but I'm also more productive now than I was in 2020 because I'm only working like 6-7 hour days because that's all I can afford to keep up with my workout schedule. And you know what? I'm a hell of a lot happier. I'm like a better person because I'm spending more time in the gym. So find a physical activity. It could be weightlifting, it could be soccer, football, going for a run, jogging, whatever it is. Find a physical activity you really, really care about and try to do that 3 to 4 times per week. Here's again some of my spreadsheet tracking from this year. This one is just so important. I can't stress how important it is to read nonfiction outside of your area of expertise. This is something I failed at tremendously coming out of grad school because I was so focused on running PyImageSearch, so focused on authoring new blog posts, authoring new books and courses, getting marketing campaigns right, running crowdfunding campaigns. I was definitely in a grind back then, working 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And when that happens, you start cutting areas of your life. And for me, that one was reading. I stopped reading as much as I used to. And I think that's probably I'm 32 now, but for my mid-20s, that's my biggest regret, I think, is I stopped reading. And it's something I recently fixed over the past 2 years. And again, it's led me to be a happier, more productive, better version of myself. But the point here is that read nonfiction that is outside your expertise and it allows your brain to make connections outside of your field. You do this enough, you'll become smarter and you'll recognize new patterns and eventually find gaps in the market that you can build a company around. Now, as an example of what happens of these patterns that you start to form, when I was in high school, my AP English teacher made us read Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. If you haven't read this book, Ayn Rand was both an author and a semi-philosopher at the same time, and she had this philosophy called objectivism, which is man as its own heroic being, and it's surrounded by you are the master of your universe. You need to focus on your ego. You need to take pride in what you do. So that was like really resonated with me when I was younger and in high school. But then a few years ago, I read Rise of Superman, and as you know, and as I stated earlier in this talk, the Rise of Superman focuses on flow states. And what happens during flow is that your prefrontal cortex essentially goes on low power mode. Your ego disappears and you're able to focus on whatever task is at hand. It almost feels like it's moving in slow motion. Everything just feels flowy. Now, it's interesting because Rand wrote 3 novels, a novella, and countless nonfiction books. So it's safe to say that at some point in her life, and in fact, probably most of her writing was spent in flow because that's when she would have been most productive. But you compare that with a flow state. So Rand is writing about the importance of your ego and the importance of pride while in a flow state. But the funny dichotomy is that when you're in a flow state, your ego is turned off. Your prefrontal cortex is on low power mode. That I would have never been able to make that connection had I not read a lot in high school and had I started reading again, 2 years ago. You do this enough, you're going to start ingesting tons of information, and then you're going to start noticing market opportunities. So read constantly and read outside of your area of expertise. Another big one for me, and this was the one I sacrificed the most when I was in college and in my early 20s, was not sleeping enough. I think I just had this like thing about me where I'm like, man, I could just go on no sleep and I'll be super productive. I'll ace that exam. I'll finish that programming assignment. And I did. But what I never really realized was that I wasn't the most productive version of myself. I thought I could get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So a few years ago, I started really actively tracking my sleep. There's a bunch of wearables you could use for sleep tracking. Apple Watch has some stuff, Fitbit, Garmin. My personal favorite is my Oura Ring right here. You just wear it on your finger while you sleep, and it gives you metrics such as your amount of REM sleep, your deep sleep, your heart rate variability. And what you'll notice is that if you sleep better, you're going to be able to extend your flow states. You're going to be more productive. So I experimented myself. I was like, let's see how my sleep is impacted after a really hard workout. Or like, what if I had to study something? So let's be super busy intellectually. I'm burning a lot of glucose in my brain trying to study this new material. Let's track my sleep after like I went out and I was drinking. And this is the biggest eye opener to me is back in my college days and in my 20s. Like I'll be honest, like I drank a fair amount and I didn't really think that much of it because like when you're young, you can drink and you can wake up and not be hungover. That's one of the beauties of being young. But when you start to hit your mid to late 20s and certainly in your early 30s, your body can't process alcohol like it used to. And what I noticed is that my heart rate was sky high after I went to bed after drinking, and I would wake up the next morning feeling tired. So essentially, like basically stopped drinking, and all of a sudden I started getting twice, sometimes three times the amount of deep sleep. I was happier the next morning. I was more productive. So track your sleep, and more importantly, just experiment with yourself. I'm not saying like don't have fun. Certainly go out and have fun, but develop some discipline to know if you need to study that next day or if you need to work on a tricky piece of code or write some marketing copy. You might want to dial back some of the activities that are going to make you not as productive. And certainly do not sacrifice your sleep. That was a huge mistake I made when I was younger. Another big thing that'll help is infrared saunas and cryotherapy. Relieves sore muscles, facilitates faster recovery, deeper sleep, reduces stress and anxiety. I believe in this so much that I do cryotherapy 4 times per week, and I have an infrared sauna in my basement that I use every single day. And again, that sounds I know that sounds batshit crazy, but if you focus on these active recovery methods, your sleep will be better. You'll be far more productive. And just out of curiosity, like I Googled, like, are there any cryo places or infrared places near Catonsville? And turns out there's this one called Revive Cryo. It's just outside of historic Ellicott City. If you're interested in like seeing this place, I would email them, say that you're a UMBC student. If you're an athlete, tell them that you're an athlete. They'll probably give you some special deals. The other thing is you need to have discipline. There's this quote from James McDonough in his book Platoon Leader, and he says, unmitigated daily discipline in all things. I love this concept because to be successful as a student, to be successful in business, you need to have discipline. Motivation is fleeting. You could go watch a YouTube video or a Facebook video that talks about discipline and you feel all amped up and you feel charged up and you're ready to go out and build your business. And that may work for a day or a week or a month, but there's going to be a time when you're low energy, when things start to spiral down. Maybe you start to fail an exam. Maybe there's death in your family. Maybe you're sick. When that happens, it's not motivation that gets you through. It's discipline. So it's not your mom calling you to remind you to study. It's not your roommate saying, hey, you haven't worked out in 5 days. It's time to go to the gym. No, it starts and ends with you. You are the own master of your destiny. Develop discipline. And I'll say adjusting a lifestyle can suck. So pick 1 to 2 things from this talk that really resonated with you. Start adding them to your life now, and then 2 to 3 months later, peel off another 2 to 3 that you think you'd like to work on and start integrating them as well. What you don't want to do is take every single thing that I've discussed here today and try and do them right now. It's going to be too much. It's going to be overwhelming. The habit isn't going to stick. There's research that says it takes anywhere from 7 to 17 days for a habit to really form in your brain with daily use. So that's what you want to do here. Pick 1 to 2 things that you know you could do reliably for 7 to 17 days. It'll become habit in your daily life. You won't have to think about it as much, and you could start working on other stuff as well. So parting words, I'll say that what you do with your degree and the business you launch in college is just a means to an end. It doesn't have to be your life's work. When I first entered grad school in the computer science department, there were some students in there who had been in grad school for over 8 years. And then when I was, working with the Entrepreneur Center, I would see students, they're like, man, I'm going to raise $1 million. I'm going to raise $5 million to build whatever project or company I am doing in college. You don't need to take these things to such an extreme degree. One of the reasons you'll see PhD candidates in grad school for so long is because they want their research to be groundbreaking. They want it to really put a massive dent in whatever their area of expertise is. Another reason you'll see kids kind of fail out of the companies they're creating in college because they set their hopes too high. They don't learn enough actionable tactics. Remember what I said earlier in this talk? I was working with ID My Pill and Chic Engine. I was trying to build companies that I didn't have enough expertise yet. I didn't have that understanding. I didn't have the connections to make them successful. But if I had started in grad school, if I had started PyImageSearch during my first year at grad school, that could have been even bigger because I would have focused on something I knew like the back of my hand. And then I could focus on the marketing. I could learn the marketing first because I'm a good coder. I know how to code, but I didn't know how to market. So while you're in grad school or while you're in undergrad, when you're working on your own businesses, don't pick off too much. Try and master a specific technique, like writing copy, like creating a sales page, like writing some sort of code to develop an iPhone app and deploying it to the App Store. Don't try and do everything at once because what you do in college is not your life's work. Take the most important points. College is all about learning. So take the most important points and apply them, and you'll be much better off. Because the world doesn't need another Mark Zuckerberg. Or I don't even know if we even need Mark Zuckerberg anymore, but we don't. Sure as hell don't need another one. So Mark created Facebook while he was in college. Okay, but that's lightning in a bottle. That's not what happens normally. So use college as a learning experience. It'll prepare you for the next stage of your life. So at this point, if you have here's my email address, my Twitter, my Facebook, my LinkedIn. I don't spend too much time on social media anymore, but feel free to connect with me then. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
First of all, Adrian, that was awesome. You were obviously in your BPT. You did a great job. What excellent information. And I'm so glad we have this recorded so we can share it with others and go back and review it ourselves. So let me open it up to the students online or anyone online. Any questions? Use the chat function or just jump in. Don't be shy. We've got a few minutes here before we have to wrap up. So take advantage of this.
Adrian, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How, let's say, suppose, actually, first of all, excellent presentation and very good advice for everybody, not only for students, but for older ones as well, like myself. So I have a question regarding the different, let's say, phases that you go through and you say, okay, now I'm doing this. And then after some time, I'm going to add another thing to it. And then another thing up to the point that I have a complete bunch of things that I'm doing every day. How do you suggest for somebody to go through the transition from one to the other? When do you see, okay, I have mastered, let's say, task number 3. How now about getting on top of that to get another one? Tell us a little bit about this transition phase or space or time between doing one and doing the other as part of, let's say, a function of being able to go to the next step versus quitting.
Yeah, so that really starts to get into your neurobiology, but what I'll say is your unconscious brain is just orders of magnitude more powerful than your conscious brain, and it takes a lot of energy to run your conscious brain. So that's why things feel tricky and challenging when you're first studying something, studying a new topic or learning a new technique or writing a tricky piece of code, is because your conscious is so focused on trying to solve that. Now, through time, through repetition, your conscious doesn't have to worry about that anymore. So that gets shifted into your subconscious. It becomes automatic, just as breathing is automatic to you. There are things with practice that you get good at and you don't need to be reminded about. So when I first started working out and spending time in the gym, like probably 10 years ago, I would set reminders on my phone, and I would have to really discipline myself into getting into the gym. Over time, that disappeared. I didn't have to set those reminders anymore. And in fact, I started looking forward to that time. I was like, this is my time to focus. This is my time for stress relief, to get out any anger or frustration or aggression that I have. So once you start noticing that you don't have to think about it anymore and you just do it, that's a good good indicator to you that you're ready for the next step. That means that whatever current project or task that you're working on, whatever tricky thing you're trying to integrate into your daily life, once you stop having to set reminders for it, it typically means it's ingrained into your unconscious mind, and you could start taking that conscious energy and focusing on something else.
Okay.
Maddie, we have a question there saying they're wondering how they can find the recording later. So do you want to address that? Maddie?
I think she might be on mute.
Okay, Maddie, if you're on mute, unmute. But we will have this posted on the Alex Brown Center website. So you can just get back with me. Maybe she stepped away for a moment. Armor, ARMOR, at umbc.edu, and I will tell you when the recording is posted and how to access it. And we have someone else who's saying, I don't have any questions, but it was really interesting. So Adrian, thank you very much for taking the time to present. So
Of
other
course.
questions, we have a few minutes.
I have a question.
Sure.
So Adrian, you mentioned that, actually one of the biggest challenge for especially computer science or technology students is marketing, because we are kind of focused mainly on the technology part, and we kind of forget about the marketing. So do you have any advice on marketing resources or how to start marketing for your business if you don't have any experience on that, or if you just want to start?
Yeah, so let me share my screen again. One resource I really like is Joanna Weeb's Copy Hackers. And this is a really good copywriting course for anyone who is, I mean, it's good for anyone, but if you're a technical founder, she does a really good job of explaining copy in a way that'll make sense to you, and just sales in general. Definitely go through their books and courses. They're certainly worth the money, and they'll get you up to speed pretty quickly. Another one is Brennan Dunn from his website, Double Your Freelancing, and then what is it, WriteMessage.io. That's his SaaS product. He has a number of books that are super cool. Sell Yourself Online. That's kind of, if you want to go like a freelancer consulting route, that's good. Then he has some courses on mastering ConvertKit and mastering Drip. Drip and ConvertKit are your email service providers. They allow you to collect people's email addresses to email them, to do broadcasts, do campaigns. So those are really nice courses to go through. They're a little on the expensive side. I think they're good Lord, I didn't even know that was $2,000. I think when I bought it was like $500. But the point is, like, start looking at whatever software stack you're using. If you were to build an email list from scratch, I'd probably recommend ConvertKit over Drip at this point. So like go to ConvertKit's website. They have like a bunch of resources here for you, like blog articles and video training and tutorials on how to use ConvertKit. And I really like this stuff because here's like a guide on how to build a newsletter, how to create landing pages. And if you're going to go the info product route, these are great resources to have. Trying to think, are there any other marketing resources that I would recommend? This is like, I don't know how I feel about this one. There was a guy, I don't know if he still produces these podcasts, but the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast, it's like a little cheesy, like a little sketchy, like you almost like listening to this guy, you almost feel like you're listening to like a pickup artist or something. So it like gets to like the shady side of marketing, like with those super long sales pages that tell you like to buy like drugs or like Viagra online or something. Like everyone's seen one of those sales pages before. So he has that type of attitude. But I remember listening to like maybe 100 episodes of his podcast when I wanted to learn how to market. And there's like definitely some golden nuggets in there. But like, I really wouldn't blame you if after 3 episodes you're like, I can't deal with this guy, and just shut it off. But definitely a worthwhile resource if you want to learn more about writing some copy. So I hope that's helpful.
We've got time for one more question. So anyone there have a thought or a question? And I see several people are thanking you for your amazing talk there, Adrian. So anybody else with a question? Well, if you think of one later, you can always send it to me, or you have Adrian's contact information. I know he will be more than happy to respond.
Certainly.
So once again, Adrian, thank you. It was really awesome. You make UMBC proud. I see another comment. Thank you for this valuable and insightful presentation. It was definitely good to have this advice as someone who's starting in entrepreneurship. So good for you, Anastasia. So now you have a good connection. UMBC alums love to help our current students. Adrian, you did a great job. You really, really did. And
thank you so much for having me.
Take you back in the future.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much.
And Adrian, we'll make sure you get a copy of this as well when it's all edited and ready. So students, thank you again. We're on, we have a workshop next week, Essential Tools and Software. Good information from a serial entrepreneur. We have the CBIC. If you have a business idea, don't miss this opportunity. So I hope we will hear from you and see you again. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.